Hello everyone, I'm Ingerlaliinnaleqaagut, here to introduce the man of the hour, Dubside.
All right, here we are.
Welcome everybody to the Dubcast. Okay, we got some mail.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, we'll go through some comments here.
All right.
Okay, Blue Side Up 007 commented, "Thank you for the insights and inspiration. As a long-time canoe paddler, 6 canoes, with 1 recreational kayak, I've recently become enthralled by the Greenland concepts.
Uh-huh.
Looking forward to making my first Greenland paddle and waiting for the ice to break up. Paddle on."
Well, that's cool.
And Blue Side Up also commented on your rolling DVD video.
Okay.
"Thank you for passing on this valuable knowledge." Stephen Bamber commented, "Interesting and informative. Thanks, guys. Keep it coming."
All right, we'll do that.
Okay, Elan writes, "There's very little information about rolling kayaks and no information at all from the people who invented the kayak and the sport. How come there are no websites, books, designers, kayaks available from the Inuit themselves? Why do I need to import a kayak that is manufactured in Poland and designed by a Swedish designer while the Inuit live in my country?" That's writing from Canada.
Okay.
So what do you think? I guess you were, one of the few people best to answer this from your special insight into the Greenlander's mind.
Well, I'll do my best. I can't speak entirely for them, but from my perspective. So he wants to know why like a kayak made in Greenland isn't available for him to buy.
Yeah, I think the question is, how come the Greenlanders haven't profited from Greenland kayaking as a recreational sport?
Okay.
Well, maybe they have. What do you know about it?
All right. Well, I can answer that on two different levels. There's a practical level and there's a cultural level. In practical terms, years and years back, some of the guys going to Delmarva, I think it was some of the Walden Ponscombe guys, they paid Maligiak to build a couple. Maligiak at the time was living in Greenland. They paid him to build a couple of kayaks for them and had them shipped down. Now, to do that on a regular basis, just the raw materials, you have to import them to Greenland. To get quality wood, they don't have any in Greenland. The finished product, you have to export that back down here. So your shipping costs, and your material supply costs are going to make it prohibitively expensive. It's going to be very, very difficult to compete with something available commercially not made in Greenland. So you've got that issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're dealing with someone in Greenland to make things back and forth, there's going to be a language barrier, which you get around that. I mean, people import things from other countries all the time, but there'll be some misunderstandings initially, like just thought you said this and you meant this, that kind of thing. There's that issue. Products in general, things made in Greenland, you don't see generally other places. And as nice as it would be to have, like a paddle made in Greenland, well, wouldn't that be cool? But they've got to import the wood to Greenland and make it there and then ship it back down here. And it costs you way more than what somebody in this country can make. So the raw materials that they have up there already, well, they have seals. They make wonderful clothing out of sealskin. We can't legally buy it in this country because back in the 70s, the environmentalists got the Marine Mammal Protection Act passed. So there's that problem there. And then culturally, kayaking is part of the Greenland history. And anytime the mainstream Western culture gets a hold of something and embraces it in a big way, it's going to dilute it down and can offend the purist. Now, maybe kayaking is beyond that stage now. It's too late. But for the Greenlanders to emphasize that and really push that, it changes the nature of their cultural property. I'll give an example of what mainstream culture can do to something.
Okay.
If you recall back in the 70s, remember CB radios?
Yes, of course.
And there was a big craze about, now originally those were like truckers and other people used those. And it was this like exclusive little niche thing with specialized, like an exclusive club kind of a thing. Once the mainstream culture got it, everybody went and bought a CB and had their handle, was talking, and I remember hearing about like some truckers from older back in the day. They stopped using their radios entirely.
Oh,
It was
wow.
just all these idiots on the on the airwaves, just cluttering up everything, and they ruined it. And so
Wow.
that's when mainstream culture gets hold of something, that can happen. Like reggae music.
Yeah.
I mean, the benefit of, you get far more resources involved. Like with the CB radios, the FCC expanded the frequency bandwidth. It was 23 channels originally. They made it 40 channels. The manufacturers made available different models of CB radios on the market, and you had all that. But the truckers complained about the thing was ruined, the airways were ruined. So reggae music, when you had the mainstream culture's resources and big studios and producers taking the music that much further and making it available worldwide. But I'm sure there were Jamaicans saying, this is not the real reggae. The real, they slicked it down, made it commercialized. Now this isn't what it really. So you've got both sides of that going on. But then in thinking that, and I'm not going to assume the person asking this question is thinking this way, but one way to think, if you're saying, well, why aren't the Greenlanders exploiting their culture? Why aren't they commercializing that? Why aren't they making money off of that? The question assumes that they would want to.
Yes.
And I remember from talking to Keeley, he said, it's a whole different mindset when there's a tradition from way back, and you don't just change it just to change it. In this country, we think we can always improve something. But when you have a big, long tradition that goes way back, and things have been done a certain way, and if you may not understand why they were done that way, but you don't just change it just to change it, to think you can improve it right away. Yeah, you have to carefully consider what you're doing and pay respect to the elders and that kind of thing. And so that enterprising vibe that we have in this country, like, well, we can make some money off of this, we can do that. That just may not at all be the way a Greenlander thinks about those things. If you recall, John Heath, the American who first went to Greenland in 1959, he's long since passed away now, but back, I think it was in the 80s, he was trying to get the list of the roles, the competition roles, the names of the roles in Greenlandic. It took him years to do that. They wouldn't give it to him. They were concerned that this guy is just going to take a piece of our culture here, the names, these roles, and who knows what he's going to do with it, and it's out of our control now. And they were very cautious about that. It seems to be that it worked out okay. We didn't, abuse it. But the Greenlanders were very, very cautious about that. And I can give you an example of something that happens a negative way in that sense. You've heard of that children's thing, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You remember that?
Yeah.
That word ninja, that goes to a very old Japanese cultural thing, very serious. The ninjutsu, it was called. That's a whole martial arts discipline. That's a serious thing. And just cheapen it down to like, we're selling kids' toys with this term. I'm sure that's offensive to anyone who's studied the real ninja philosophy. But that's what you get when a mainstream culture embraces it. Now we have this word ninja. We can use it, slap it on toys, and sell them to kids. So that's what I would imagine. Some people in Greenland would be cautious about sending their culture out to anything. And I've tried myself to be very careful in what I do and try to be respectful. And I'm sure still that there'll be some Greenlanders somewhere be offended by that. I'm sure you can find some Greenlanders who think what Maligak's done is not good. So you've got various ways of looking at it. And so, in general, I find that things in Greenland happen in their own Greenlandic way on their own Greenlandic timetable. And if you make assumptions about what you think how things ought to run and try to feel like you're helping people, like you got to do this, you tend to get very frustrated because it doesn't work that way. They've got their own way of doing things and they've got their own timetable, and you just have to sort of follow along and accept how things work. Now, having said all that, if someone is asking, if maybe the question of why aren't they doing this is more about, I would like to support that. I would like to, give back to the culture. How can I help contribute to that? So how is there something that's actually made in Greenland I could purchase that would help to support their thing? Well, there is music made in Greenland, and I've been trying to hype that up with every podcast. So if you would like to buy something made in Greenland, supporting Greenlanders, at the end of any one of my Dubcasts, it gives you a sample of music and tells you where to go buy it. So there's that.
Good answer. And I also thought about what Keeley had said when I saw that question. You might have to ask the elders and the whole community for
Yeah.
permission to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And given how much reverence they have for that culture, you may not get too far trying to profit from it. And the other thought I had is that when you look at the people who are selling products related to Greenland style kayaking, how many of these people are really making a lot of money?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's not very profitable at all.
There's some people who are carving paddles, and there's that
Yeah.
that guy in Taiwan who is making those carbon fiber paddles.
Yeah. The Gear Lab paddles. Yeah.
Yeah, the Gear Lab, and people making Greenland style kayaks in Europe.
Yeah.
But there are probably easier ways to make money.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd probably be easier for Greenlanders to make money fishing than to
Oh yeah.
invest in a project like that.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I could go to Greenland and talk to some people and say, okay, I want you people to make the kayaks, and I got a whole distribution plan to market them and bring them down and work it all out. And I know that would just kind of fall apart, because
Yeah.
it's a foreigner coming in and say, here's what you got to do. Now, if somebody in Greenland had set this up and asked me for some help, I'd be helping them. But for me to say, here's what you need to do, I want you to make the kayaks, it's going to fall apart. And that pattern has repeated itself for hundreds of years. Foreigners coming and say, here's what you people need to do. Here's what we're going to, done with often good intentions. I can help these people do that. And then what's wrong? These people don't know, because you don't really understand the culture. You're not taking the time to realize that there's a certain way things are done there, and there are reasons for that. And you're making all these assumptions that just aren't proving accurate.
However, you did mention Maligiak, and he was making some money building kayak frames and models while he was here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
I remember when he first started that, and your former business partner mentioned it to me and was asking me, would I be interested in buying one of Maligiak's kayak models? And how much would I be willing to pay for it? I gave some kind of lowball offer, not realizing how much they intended to sell them for. I think actually I was pretty stupid at the time, because I didn't realize that, he's not going to be making these frames forever, and they're going to become pretty valuable collector's items.
Yeah.
So I kind of regret not buying one at the time when I had the chance.
Yeah.
Like how many people have a kayak made by Maligiak? Although I do have, I'm proud to say I do have my cherished possession that was given to me by Maligiak, and that's one of his golden harpoon head medals.
Oh yeah, a Qaqqat medal. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I got one from the rolling competition during Greenland Week that Kayak Academy put on.
Yeah.
For years I had actually didn't know where it was, and until I found it recently.
You misplaced it.
Yeah, I did.
That can happen. Yeah.
But you must have quite a few of those.
No, those are only given to Greenlanders.
Yeah, but you do have one though.
Maligiak gave me one, and then let me see, I got, maybe Maligiak gave me the second one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got so many of them. He's trying to get rid of them.
The first time I saw one, you showed it at Sticks, I think.
Okay.
And I couldn't stop laughing because it was such a phallic symbol.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the Golden Cock Award.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope that answers your question, Elan.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and get started with Dubcast number.
So let me
22. Okay, yeah.
Let me add one little thing. I'm working on a special initiative here that I want people to know about, and it's going to take me a while to get this fully happening. But I have this other website that's qattarneq.com, QATTARNEQ, which is kind of dormant because I've been working on these podcasts. But I used to do video things on there, and there's still rope moves and rolling moves there. But anyway, I may put up on there or make available one way or the other. But I'm working on an index, a master index for every Dubcast episode, and I'll be adding to these as I do new ones. And every time I mention someone's name or a place or anything, so you can, if you need to look up, say, Sherry Perry, like every episode and the minute during the episode that I mentioned that name, it'll come up at an index. You hear all the places where Sherry Perry's name is mentioned. Or, if I'm talking about, the Rebel kayaks, you can just look it up and find it there. So you don't have to listen, when was Dubside talking about the oil spill in Philadelphia? What was that? You don't have to listen through 5 different episodes to try to find it. You can just go to this index and find where it is and go right to that one. So I hope within the next couple of weeks, I hope to have that up and running.
Excellent. That'd be a fantastic resource. I think it'll be wonderful to have that up.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But, fantastic. Fantastic that you're doing that.
Welcome to the Dubcast with Dubside. This is Dubcast 22, which covers modern transportation in Greenland, specifically the airline known as AIR GREENLAND. I have a piece of music that was performed live on AIR GREENLAND. By that I mean in the plane, in the air, performed live. And if you're wondering how that worked out, keep listening. If you take a look at a map of Greenland that shows the towns and settlements, you will see that the bulk of them are on the southwest quadrant of the island. They call it an island. It kind of looks like a continent to me, but I don't decide these things. These towns and villages are all on the coast. Nobody lives in the middle of Greenland because it's all just ice there. The coastal terrain is quite rocky, and there's some dirt and sand in places, but lots of rocks. And traditionally, the way to travel between towns would be either by a boat, or when the ice was freezing things up, a dog sled in the wintertime. And when modern technology came to Greenland, it added the option of flying between places. And there are cars, trucks, and things in Greenland, but there are no roads between the towns because it is prohibitively expensive to build a road, particularly for the numbers of people who would be traveling it. And even up to the present day, there are no highways, there are no smaller roads, there are no country roads, there's no roads between the towns. There are no trains in Greenland. Basic options are you go by air or you go by boat to get between the towns. And the rocky terrain in Greenland also poses some challenges for making an airport, because naturally you have to have a very flat piece of ground, and there are not very many long, flat pieces of ground in Greenland. To date, they have only made 3 locations with an airstrip long enough to land a big jet. And one of them is up north, the Thule Air Base, but that's all military, so civilians don't really have that option. The other 2 are Qaqqat, that's what it's called, Qaqqat, and that is somewhat in the middle of the range of towns on the southwest side. And on the southern tip, there is the airport of Narsarsuaq. So Air Greenland runs all the airplanes in Greenland. There's a little bit of service provided by Icelandair, but for the most part, Air Greenland's got the monopoly. And they have one big jet, which they make regular runs every day to Copenhagen and back. And that'll take you to either Qaqqat or Narsarsuaq, and then from those 2 main airports, you get on smaller planes or even helicopters to get to the town you want to go to. So, for example, if you have to go to Paamut, which is several miles north of the southern tip, you would take a flight to Narsarsuaq, and there you would change to a smaller turboprop plane, one that Air Greenland has several of, and these are designed to land on short runways. If you're going to Qaqqat, the terrain there doesn't even make an airport feasible, so you would take a helicopter from Narsarsuaq, and that would land at the heliport in Qaqqat. Air Greenland has sometimes been called Imaka Airlines. And there's another Greenlandic word, Imaka. Imaka is the Greenlandic for maybe. And the schedules in Greenland have to be considered somewhat flexible because the extreme weather in a place like that dictates its own schedule, and you just have to follow along. So you can say it's going to happen at such and such a time, but it might just change because things have to do that in Greenland. At this point, I've flown Air Greenland probably more than 20 times, and usually things go on schedule. Occasionally they don't. I'll tell you about that. But first, let me describe the Air Greenland experience. They make the announcements in Greenlandic and Danish and English. The signs posted around the airplane are in English and Greenlandic. So it'll say fasten seatbelt while seated, and also say Isiatishlutit Qitekotasak Ikusimayuk. There's the Air Greenland in-flight magazine, and the articles in that magazine have 3 times as many pictures as you would expect because each article is printed in Greenlandic and Danish and English. And each of those 3 have a different set of pictures. The in-flight entertainment system is not one of the super modern ones where you can choose movies on demand and play games and things. It has there's an in-flight movie. Everybody watches the same movie if they want to see what's on the screen. But what I pay most attention to is the music channels. They have 10 or so music channels. There's one of the latest top 40 hits. There's a Danish channel. There's a classical music channel. And there are 2 Greenlandic music channels featuring the music of Greenland, including the latest releases. And I'm always anxious to hear the newest things coming out of Greenland. Gives me a heads up on what to buy once I get there. I'll tell you about the first time the Imaka aspect of Air Greenland hit me pretty hard. This was 2008, and the competition was being held in Qaqqat in South Greenland, which means flying to Narsarsuaq first. And Helen Wilson was there that year. To come straight to Greenland from the U.S., it's easiest to go to Iceland first. And there are other airlines who get you to Iceland, and then Air Greenland takes you from Iceland to Greenland. But since I'm usually in Scandinavia first, before and after, I just take a trip from Copenhagen to Greenland and back. And in 2008, all my engagements in Norway, Denmark, and Sweden were before the Greenland competition. So I planned to come back to Copenhagen after the competition. I had 2 days in Copenhagen, and then I'd fly back to the U.S. And I figured 2 days would be enough to, in case there was a delay, I wouldn't miss my connecting flight back home. As I mentioned before, the other main mode of transportation in Greenland is by boat. And there is a ferry that runs up and down the coast regularly, comes through each town probably once a week. It takes that long to get all the way to the northernmost stop and back down again. And the majority of the teams arrive at the competition on this ferry. So the competition schedule is centered around the ferry schedule. And this particular year, they had the competition would end, and then there'd be an extra day, and then the ferry would leave to go north, because this was in Qaqqat was the end of the ferry line. It turns around there. Well, the competition ends with a big dinner, and Helen and I had booked our flights to fly out of Greenland the next morning. Well, it's quite common for the competition schedule to get a little behind, and they don't finish a race, one of the age groups, or they don't get to all the rolling or rope something. And they'll try to catch up at other days when, if it's just harpoon throwing, they can maybe stick something else in like a race. But didn't quite work out that year to keep on the schedule. So since the ferry wasn't leaving for another day, they just pushed the final dinner ahead a day, which meant that Helen and I would be missing the last day and the final dinner of the competition. I certainly wasn't happy about that, but the only way to stay longer would be to buy a whole nother plane ticket, and I certainly couldn't afford that. So on that last day, we're there at the airport, the heliport in Qaqqat, while they're still doing competitive events and getting ready for the dinner that evening. And at the airport, we're waiting, and the screen says there'll be a half-hour delay for that flight. And then the screen says there'll be a 1-hour delay, and then the screen says there'll be a 2-hour delay. And this typically means that there's going to be a very long delay. And we get the word that the airport in Narsarsuaq is fogged in, so the helicopter cannot go to Narsarsuaq. And so we're wondering, what if we were to hire a boat to take us to Narsarsuaq? That's maybe an hour boat ride. We can get there that way and then make the flight and leave. And then we're told that no, that's not the problem. Is not getting to Narsarsuaq. The problem is getting out of Narsarsuaq. The big plane flying to Copenhagen is not flying in the fog. So don't even try taking a boat, because you're just going to be stuck in Narsarsuaq. And we realized we'd rather be stuck in Qaqqat, because that allows us to see the rest of the competition and go to the dinner. As luck would have it, we're told that flight will not be flying that day. So we had to go through a bit of a fuss for them to give us rooms to stay in, because they owe us, as per the airline policy, a place to stay while the flight gets rescheduled. I've been told this is one of the reasons why the fares are so high on Air Greenland, because they have to cover for all the times flights are canceled and they have to put people up in hotels. So the 20 or 30 people that were going to be on the helicopter to Narsarsuaq, it takes a while for them to get through all of us, and I think they didn't have rooms enough in hotels, but they had other places and places available. So they get us fixed up with that, and they give us a ride to this apartment that we could stay at for that night. And then as soon as we're finished getting all settled in there, we run back to the competition to see the final events and prepare for the dinner that evening. So in the end, in the finest sense of imaka, we did get to see the full competition. And I got back to Copenhagen it might have been the day after the next day. But by the time I got back to Copenhagen, the flight I was going to take back to the U.S. had already gone. I missed that flight. I had allowed 2 days in Copenhagen, figuring that would be enough, and it wasn't. So I had to rebook that flight at a cost of something like $400, because that airline was not connected to Air Greenland, so it wasn't on Air Greenland to settle that. So I had to cough up some extra money, but that's what happens in Greenland. Imaka. The weather takes priority over schedules, so they are maybe schedules. Tell you about another time. I'm in Copenhagen, and I had some working at some kayak clubs and things there. And there was a guy there who was very interested in kayaking, and he was staying at his girlfriend's place. I knew both of them, had done rowing classes for them. And so he just gave me the keys to his apartment and said, here, you can stay here. And so I had very comfortable accommodations there in his apartment, coming and going as I pleased. And the plan was I would just leave his apartment and stick the key in the mailbox when I went to the airport to fly to Greenland. And planning when I came back from Greenland, head straight for Sweden, so I wouldn't need to use his apartment anymore. The daily flight that Air Greenland runs from Copenhagen to Greenland goes usually, it's either 9 o'clock in the morning or sometimes it's 12 noon. And so this particular flight, all my information, my ticket said 12 o'clock, which makes for a casual waking up in the morning and getting ready and making your way to the airport. Even to be there an hour or two earlier, you don't have to get up at 5 in the morning like you do sometimes. So I get to the airport and I go and I don't see the Air Greenland logo on the regular gate, so I have to go over to the office on the side with the AIR Greenland office that's always there. And I said, excuse me, I'm this flight, I don't know, I don't see where the gate is. And they look at my ticket and they say, oh no, that flight left this morning at 9 o'clock. And I said, well, no, that my ticket says 12. And they said, no, that was changed to 9 o'clock. Oh, we sent you an email. And I'm thinking, yeah, well, if you sent me an email, it went to somebody who paid for the ticket 6 months ago, and since I don't do email, I didn't get the message. So she's on her computer trying to prove to me that they sent this email, and I'm trying to tell her, look, that's not even the issue now. Right now, the issue is I'm not on the plane, and what can you do for me? I missed that flight. So she says they'll rebook me for the next day, that flight at 9 o'clock. Now, this was several years ago when they still had just a few payphones around Copenhagen. And I get to one of these payphones and I call my friend with the apartment, the Danish guy. And he, it turns out, is way out of the city at his parents' house visiting for the weekend or something like that. And I realized it'd be way too inconvenient for him to come back into the city. And I don't have the key to his apartment. He's got no problem with me staying there. I just don't have the key and no way to get in. So I'm kind of stuck. Of the handful of people that I know in Copenhagen, I don't want to impose on them at the last minute, even if I could reach them by payphone. So I had to find a hostel and pay money that I didn't want to pay, and then the next morning get to the airport and take that plane to Greenland. For many years, going to the competition for foreigners, we've always had a problem that they don't announce the dates for the competition until middle of the spring, could be April almost, and by then the price of the tickets has gone up. So we've asked them sometimes, if they could announce it somewhat earlier, if they could work on that. And so they have tried to make accommodations. And actually, the last time I went to Greenland, this was 2018, the word went out, I think it was the end of December when the dates would be. And so by January, I had bought my tickets and was proud of myself for getting them so early. The price still wasn't super low, but I had them, could have that out of the way. And I didn't think about it much more until, say, end of June, when it was time to go to Greenland. And by then, they had adjusted the schedule and added an extra day into the competition. And I realized my ticket would have me leaving the last day of the event, just like before when I'd missed the final dinner and everything that happened that day. And I couldn't change the ticket because it would cost, I didn't have that option on the cheap ticket. Well, this took place in Nuuk, the big city, and that year qajaq was there. There was this guy named Wolfgang from Germany who had come the year before and was very interested in Greenland stuff, was hanging out a lot with qajaq. And as the week of competition got underway, I could see that it was going to come to pass that I would have to leave the morning of the last day. And I figured maybe this Imaka business will work in my favor, and there'll be fog at the airport, and I'll have to stay an extra day, and just like last time, things will work out. So, keeping my fingers crossed, the last day came, and still no report of bad weather in Qaqqat. So I got my stuff all packed up and got there in the morning, figured out how to get to the airport. I think Nuuk actually has buses, a limited amount of bus lines. And so I got a bus. Well, everybody else was going to the final. I think they were doing ropes the last day, which I really regretted missing. So I made my way to the airport and got there, an hour, 45, 50 minutes early, as I like to get places early. Had nothing else to do that morning because I had to get to the airport anyway. And out of Nuuk, there are several flights going to various places. And I think there were multiple trips going to Qaqqat throughout the morning. And I see that the one I got there, and there was one that was getting ready to go. But I looked on the screen, and it said that the flight I had in the next hour, there was something. It might have been Danish or Greenlandic for cancel. I couldn't quite tell what it was. So I went up. It thought maybe this is it. Maybe like last time, cancel flight, I get to stay. So I went to the desk and I showed them, here's my ticket. And they said, oh, you need to go on this plane right now. You need to go. That plane's going to Qaqqat. You need to get on that plane. And I thought, well, if I'd come a little bit later, like my normal time, not getting there early, I would have missed this plane. Then I would have, they put me up in the hotel and, the whole bit, I would have worked. So, but they were saying I had to get on that plane. So I said, it's not really urgent that I leave Greenland right now. If I miss the next plane, it's not. I can wait. And they said, no. You have to get on this plane. You must get on this plane now. And I couldn't talk my way out of it. So I had to get on that plane, and it took me to Qaqqat and the connecting flight on to Copenhagen. And I didn't get to see the final day of the event, nor go to the dinner. However, a couple weeks after that, I was still in Scandinavia, and I went to Norway. There's a Greenland event that I'll tell you more about that in future Dubcasts. This one takes place up near Trondheim, Norway, out on the coast. And I've been going to that one for the past 10 years or so that they've had it. It's an all Greenland-style event. They do the rolling. They actually have a rolling competition that I have helped them out with. And so this guy Wolfgang, the guy who was hanging out with Maligak, came to that one from Greenland, and Wolfgang had some expensive photography equipment. Took all these pictures, and so had him scheduled to give a presentation at this event in Norway. So he shows his pictures of the various all the things going on in Greenland from the weeks before that, and then he says that on the flight back from Greenland to Denmark, he was on the plane, and now you remember I told you about in one of called it the best thing that had happened to Greenlandic music. This band called Nanook, by these two brothers, Christian and Frederick Elsner. They're my favorite musical act out of Greenland, and the Elsner brothers are involved in the whole musical operation of AtlanticMusic.com, etc. And so Wolfgang tells me that on the flight back, the announcer came on the PA system and said, ladies and gentlemen, I guess maybe he was speaking in Danish, because Wolfgang can understand Danish. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have on board with us today two of the members of Nanook, and they are going to grace you with a song that they will come up and down the aisles with their guitars and sing for you. And I was so envious. I wished I'd have been on that flight, man. I wish I had been there. I mean, to me, that was like being on an international flight and them announcing that Sting is on board and he's going to come up and down the aisle and sing Every Step You Take for your enjoyment. And the song they sang is a special song. Their first two CDs were very, very well done, very popular, sold a lot of CDs. And then they did an extra song, and this was included on the soundtrack to a movie. There's this movie in Greenland. It's a scary horror movie kind of thing, done in all in Greenlandic with English subtitles, using all Greenlandic actors. And this song, this Nanook song, is on the soundtrack for the movie. And I've seen them do this song in concert. It has this more of a dance type beat to it. It says this is our most popular dance song, and people get up and dance to the song. And so I'm going to give you my own version of this song. And if you've actually gone and bought any of the CDs of the things I've done, you've found that I don't try to do carbon copies of the songs on the record. I give it my own little twist, throw some little bit of originality in there. There's no need to try to duplicate it exactly. So I'm going to give you my own version of this song, and this is called Ingerlaliinnaleqaagut, which translates to we keep on going, we keep on persevering, maybe, or we keep on going. And I'll do this minus the full drums, bass, and arrangement they have on the record, but just guitar and voice.
sanek Tungi nutsupo para Onguyumik akigama Ekasachitit Atua baka Kamasuak Imesolesok Esiginagu Aku eresigu Ingerlaliinnaleqaagut Kingumut kiviatara yunashtutit Ingerlaliinnaleqaagut Siumakane sakitiyu tishtugu Sivunga Sia lusuit Qawsatut Tunguanitut Iorapaka Ingerlaliinnaleqaagut Kingumut kiviatara yunashtutit Ingerlaliinnaleqaagut Siumakane sakitiyu tishtugu Kingumut kiviatara yunashtutit Siumakane sakitiyu tishtugu
Yes, Ingerlaliinnaleqaagut. We keep on going. Imagine hearing that sung in person by the original songwriters while you're at 30,000 feet flying over Greenland. Well, that was the experience some people had, and I wish I was on that flight. And you can hear the original recording by going to atlanticmusic.gl. And that is on the Qaqqat Alanngui soundtrack, the movie. Qaqqat Alannngui, which translates to Shady Side of the Mountain. That song also appears on the Nanook Live DVD with the CD included that I've mentioned earlier. Now, I realize this is the second Nanook song I've done for you, and not to say that I've run out of great artists to bring to you. There are lots of others I haven't gotten to yet, but I like Nanook so much that I couldn't resist throwing it. And I have some more Nanook songs I probably will do in the future. They're a great band. Well, I have on occasion gone to the Atlantic Music storefront in Nanook, Greenland, and walked in, and standing there behind the counter is Frederick Elsner. Kind of be the equivalent of going into some, say, a record store in New Jersey and asking about some piece of music you're interested in, and suddenly realizing that the guy behind the counter you're talking to is Bruce Springsteen. Well, that's kind of what it's like. And one time I was there, and Frederick, he gave me, maybe they just had them made, he gave me a guitar pick. It's a Nanook guitar pick. It's got the little Nanook polar bear head thing on it it says Nanook underneath it. It's a guitar pick, and it's a prized possession of mine. And this particular one actually glows in the dark. Now, I've been told that on the website, on the atlanticmusic.gl website, under the Nanook section, you can get the Nanook t-shirt and a Nanook poster and the CDs. And you can buy a Nanook guitar pick. And it'll cost you $7. But Frederick was nice enough to give me mine for free. And actually, the rest of my time in Nuuk, I kept meaning to go back and get another one and think, well, this is so incredible. I got to have a spare. But I didn't do that, so I just have the one. And actually, I never even play guitar with it. I don't want to wear it out. I just have it stuck on the wall so I can look at it and see it glow when I turn the lights off. And that wraps up Dubcast number 22. Coming up in episode 23, I could tell you about making skin-on-frame kayaks a special way that involves a 2-hour time period to put the frame together, which has been done as kind of a contest among teams competing at various events I've been to. But I might save that for some other time. So that'll be the subject of 23, Imaka. You'll just have to wait and see. Till next time. So add that to your Greenlandic vocabulary. We have Alanngui, everything's cool. Poyanok, thank you. And Imaka, maybe.